Meditations of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So you may have noticed there's something a little different, and notice it. I'm going to call your attention to it. This beautiful icon that is central here right in front of the altar. There is a story to be told about this icon. When you come up for communion, you'll be able to see it more carefully and more closely. It is an icon of St. Matthew. And it was gifted to us by the congregation formerly known as St. Matthew's in Portland. St. Matthew's in Portland closed earlier this year. And when a congregation closes, the items in the building that the congregation uses that are consecrated and they are sacred, we don't just put them on eBay. Right? That's just not how we roll. So I was called by the diocese. There was a group of people as the congregation was looking at winding down and having their last service. If we would be willing to receive the icon of St. Matthew from them, that it might live on in the other St. Matthew within the diocese. And I said, oh, let me think about it. Yes! Yes. It's very exquisite. And I want to tell you something about icons, just so you know when you come up here and you're looking at it, you have a little bit more knowledge about it, in case you don't know, because not everybody knows about icons. They're an unusual kind of image. And that's really what an icon is. It's an image. And it's obviously a sacred image, an image of someone in the Bible, someone in the economy of the story of salvation, usually. Icons are made by someone who is obviously trained and knows how to write them. They are not painted. You don't paint an icon. They are written. And the paint that is used is made usually from some mixture of soil and egg. It must be natural. It has to come from the earth. It's not you just go down to Michael's and you get some acrylic paint and you paint a painting. It's not like that. In iconography, there is a whole prayer, discipline, and spirituality about how the image comes forth. Now, that's just interesting all on its own, but there's more. Wait, there's more. If you know anything about art and how things are in the West, how images are rendered in the West as opposed to the East, when you look at this picture or any icon out of that tradition of the church, when I say East, I'm talking about the church, the earliest part of the church in Turkey and in Jerusalem and in Syria, right? The Middle East, where the church was really the birthplace of the Christian movement. It's very big. Iconography is a very essential part of worship and life. But if you look at the painting in the West, the focal point is always inside the picture. So when you stand in an art museum and you're looking at something that is an image that's been rendered in the West, you generally see it goes like this. There is a point at which it's like a background. You see it in the image. In Eastern art, you are the focal point. And the perspective of the way things are drawn, they may look to you to be elongated, kind of weird proportions, like hands and legs, and things don't really look like that. Why is it? It's because you are the focal point of an icon. And there's a reason for that. It's that the image is looking at you. You aren't looking at it. Does that make sense? Think of it this way. An icon is a window into heavenly realms. It's the idea. So if you ever walk into a Russian Orthodox church or a Greek Orthodox church, a church where icons are a part of the life of worship, you would be with the windows of heaven around you, sharing the worship with the angels and the saints and everybody else who's ever gone before. The idea is that they are as a congregation as the prayer is offered. So I just want you to know that when you look at it, because if you've not been up close to an icon, the proportions are strange. The eyeballs are strange. Things are not the way we normally see them, and it's on purpose, and I want you to know that. Okay, iconography lesson over. Back to the text. I am the true vine. There's so much to say about this text, but I want to just pull out a couple of things. When I first worked with it this week, the phrase in this litany, by the way, bearing fruit occurs 6 times in this short little passage. You know, it's like John was on a jag. Bear fruit, bear fruit, bear fruit. The line that says, everyone who abides in me bears fruit, and my Father prunes it so that the vine will bear more fruit. Now that caught me up short because it didn't seem fair. Well, if I'm a fruit-bearing vine, why do I need to be pruned? It's the non-fruit-bearing ones that need to get pruned. Does that make sense? It's the ones that are just those spiny little things. And in fact, they get pruned as well, don't they? But it was that one line that the fruit-bearing gets pruned so it bears more fruit. I had a little reaction. And whenever you have a little reaction to a text, you need to sit with that. You need to figure out, why does that bother you? What is it? Because that's usually God talking. And so I sat with that quite a bit. This idea that however much I think I might be fruit-bearing in my life, you know, we have usually a high estimation of that, of ourselves. Just saying. Pruning shears. Heavenly pruning shears. God comes and will prune us. Now, it's metaphor, of course. God does not have a giant set of... I don't know. Maybe God has a giant set of pruning shears. But I'm kind of thinking that's not what this is about. I'm kind of thinking that what this is about is things in your life that prevent you from growing, from thriving, from bearing fruit. That God has an investment in those being cut away, them being left behind, so that what you were meant to do and meant to be can continue to flourish. Even if you're fruit-bearing, guess what? Chop, chop. Pruning must happen. What happens if you don't prune?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Well,
It goes crazy, gets out of control. What else happens if you don't?
less fruit.
Less fruit?
Inferior fruit.
Inferior fruit? What else?
It's unattractive.
It's unattractive. Yeah. What else? Bugs. Oh my goodness, the vermin. Anybody's mother an expert on rats' nests?
You stop growing.
You stop growing. Exactly. Becomes a bramble. So it's absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. Now here's the catch of this passage. Because it's a metaphor, you need to understand something very, very carefully here about God. None of us prune each other. I guess I gotta say that one again. Everybody's dead quiet. None of us prune each other. God is the pruner. The vine grower is the pruner. We are not pruning each other. Do y'all get it?
Yeah.
Because it's really tempting, isn't it? If Doug were here, he's preaching in Cottage Grove this morning, but he would tell you that, you know, between the two of us, yeah, there's a lot of mutual, let me just fix that about you. We do, human being, I think that's a human tendency. We say, I know how to make you just right. If I could just fix this in you, then you would be awesome. But that's not what Jesus is talking about here. He's talking about something that God, the Holy Spirit, does to draw us closer, to make us more what we were meant to be. It's discipleship and growing in faith. God must prune us. We don't prune each other. God does the pruning. That's very important, I think, to hold on to and remember. So I want you to think about this just for a minute. What is God pruning in you? what is God pruning in you? Cutting away something in your life? Shaping you to become more fruit-bearing? I want you to think about that while I continue on about St. Matthew's. It was quite wonderful. This week I had Diocese Council, and I knew that it was kind of like meet in the parking lot, I'll give you the icon. You know, it was this funny sort of exchange thing that we did. And I had this text rolling around in my mind about pruning shears and pruning and the necessity of pruning as we experience it, you know, in growing things. But as soon as I put that in my hands and started trying to get it into my car, it occurred to me that St. Matthew's in Portland was pruned. It was pruned. And the people in the congregation were the ones that decided it was time. It was just time. They had a long history. They had done a lot of beautiful things over the years, a lot of lives touched and blessed in the ministry of that congregation, and it just was time. They didn't have the oomph anymore. Now, there's lots of complications, as there always is, but they as a group discerned that it was time, and the Diocese of Oregon and the life of Park Rose, East Portland, that it was time that the congregation closed. I want to suggest that that's one of the ways in which God prunes. Now, I said this at 8 o'clock. Don't everybody freak out, because everybody thinks that this is like closing of churches is God's will. I don't know if that's true, but everything has a season. Everything has a season. And the season of that congregation being established in that time and in that place was done. And the people there very graciously said, okay, we will go to where we will bear fruit. The congregation, people went to other congregations. It was needful. Now, I'm just very touched by that, because I don't know about you, well, I do know, because y'all are just like me, is that change is not my most favorite thing. And yet, darn it, all of it doesn't keep happening. Change keeps happening. Those seasons that we say, you know, keep unfolding, they keep unfolding. It would be so nice if things just remained stable. But they don't. They don't. The skills you have in one area of your life or one season of your life, they have to give way when you enter a new season of your life. It's just the way it is. Darn it. Have to learn new things. Think about the last year. Does anybody here learn new things? Mm-hmm. Doesn't really end, does it? I kind of think we should put it over the doorway. All things change. All things
Except
change.
God.
Except God. And yet God, when we abide in God, and we abide in God's changelessness, this is a beautiful paradox, that we are pruned to bear more fruit. It's really a part of abiding in God, is allowing for change and not being freaked out by it, anxious by it, disturbed by it, but allowing it to be part of what God is doing in us. That's hard for me personally to hear, because I really like things not to change. But there seems to be this inevitability about it that I can't control, turns out. And yet here is this invitation in this text. I am the true vine. Abide in me. If you abide in me, I abide in you. There is this promise of intimacy and of sap. The lifeblood of God himself given to us. There's serious grace in this. The kind of grace that allows the I'm calling them the remnant of St. Matthew's, very small group of people, to say, you know, God's bigger and God still has his hands on us. And they were pruned, but it's not the end. And they graciously give this to us so that the life of, it's very symbolic, St. Matthew's himself, what did he had to leave behind? What did Jesus prune in him in order for him to become a disciple? Do you know? Peter, you don't
Tax collector. Tax
Who was
collector.
Matthew?
He was a
He's
tax
a
collector.
patron. Who is Matthew?
Tax collector.
He's a tax collector, right? What did he have to stop doing? Painful. It had to be painful to do that. Besides just the cash, he's stepping into a group of people, you know, Jesus' other followers who probably knew him and hated him. He had to step into serious discomfort in the hope that what Jesus was saying was true, that we're all going to love each other, despite who we might have been or what we might have done. That abiding in God, in fact, is about love. Now, that first letter of John, chapter 4, that was also read this morning, it's like he's fixated on the word abide. It's like one of his most favorite. Abide and overcome. Those are two of John's favorite words. And in that text, that letter, he's writing about love. And that what love looks like isn't something we do. It's that God has loved us first. It's God's initiative. I don't know why this works for me, but it's God's sap. It's the lifeblood of God that makes it all possible. That's good news. Don't be afraid of being pruned. Don't be afraid. Yeah. Okay, Chris she just had surgery, so she's like, that's funny. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, that's funny. I'm sorry? Sometimes you make a new start, right? Pruning it can be painful though. That's why we resist it. But it's necessary for abiding. Isn't that an interesting paradox?
Interesting thing about pruning, I'm having a hard pruning right now. And I have been absolutely aghast at how much this misconception I have carried has filtered into every section of my faith so that it's poisoning the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of pruning to endure.
There's a lot of pruning. Actually, I'm sure there's a lot of pruning for all of us. All of us. Don't be afraid of the shearers. The God who created you is the God who loves you. And hear the word of this text. Those who bear much fruit, I prune so that they will bear more fruit. This is what glorifies my Father, that you bear much fruit and you become my disciples. This is not about punishment. This is about becoming what we were meant to be from the beginning. It is a new creation. When Jesus says, I am the true vine, he's saying, don't graft yourself onto something that won't give you life. It's me, I give you life. I am the vine, you are the branches. Abide in me, I abide in you. Beautiful invitational language. This is not a God to fear. This is not some kind of process in which there is judgment. Well, judgment that we give each other. God decides what needs pruning. Ouch. But it is for life. It is for life. Because he is the God of